guess that flick with the light means it's come ahead. Huh?
Uh-huh.
Got it figured out?
No, it's on, but it's I can see a little in there, but it's so hazy I can't do nothing with it. Why don't you pull over right here just a second? I hate to not be able to.
Let me. Oh, that's because this is, you had to pull that back to get it. That slides back to get it in focus, the eyepiece.
Okay.
So next time just pull that up like that. In fact, if you pull it very hard, it'll come off.
But it is on.
It's ready to go. Just in case it does, I'm gonna roll one down while you're getting that old building. And then there's one on the just left of the road up here too. It'll pick it up. If you point, I'm gonna pull over and let these people go by. This routine you ought to get some video of.
I don't think they need to have an hour posted.
No, for me they don't.
I heard some people last night leave. We're getting after it.
What
Burning off and everything.
Oh, I heard some people driving in past the hotel. It sounded like they were doing about 60 miles an hour.
He got pretty eyes, doesn't he?
Look at
Yeah, there's a light coming on right in the middle, Bill. Does it stay on standby a certain length of time and then turn itself off?
Yeah.
Bill?
Street road sign coming up.
Okay, we clearing latch. I'm going to try to get this down so you'll have some orientation when you're doing this. Larkinhead 21. At Larkinhead's where we turn right. Valley over there, isn't it?
Sure is.
You see those marks on the sheet?
Yeah.
Color?
Somebody at SAS told them. Oh, you mean in the viewfinder?
Yeah, right in the middle of it. It's a little different than the other one that was in there.
Okay. Where's that blue bag?
Well, I'll tell you what, we've on our way to Sterling.
Yeah. We got 43.
16 miles to go, and then we turn right.
Yeah, I think it's 13 miles now.
Well, I'll tell you what I need to do is I need to look at the map. It's A84.
We're going into a greenhouse tunnel.
Wonder if they can pick up odor on this thing, Bill.
Did you get any on you? What they call Scotch pine?
I think so. And you were on the way home and you got a traffic ticket.
None of them great big stags runs out in front of us.
Well, I tell you what, that's the closest fedness.
Yeah, wasn't that something? A whole covey of them. And baby ones too.
Yeah.
Frying size.
Well, I've seen a lot of them, but I've never been that close to them when they really aren't paying you a whole lot of attention.
Did you ever visit us in Columbus?
Jess came over.
Knox, and it was in a housing development, and about 300 yards behind us, they had not developed it yet. It was kind of, well, it was just undeveloped land, and it went all the way down to a river, a small river in Columbus. And there was a great, of course, there was always to clean our windows. Yeah. Those people are ambitious riding those bicycles through these mountains.
I bet they're tired when they get to wherever they're going.
I bet they're strong whenever they get to where they're going to.
And I know mine wouldn't pass if it was mine. I don't know how they keep them on the road. There's what we thought was an aqueduct at first, but I'm sure that had to be a bridge or a road.
Well, we got past the smoker.
On 8, go to the right, and we get on 85.
Okay, we'll go to the right. You think you can hold out till we get to Edinburgh before we eat?
Well, I tell you what, I'm really not hungry right now. I had some porridge. Are you hungry?
Oh, not especially. I think I can make it.
Look for 84.
Looks like 84 straight ahead. 85 goes to the left.
That's where we need to go. Yeah, you remember we came this way and we went to right here and turned and came back. Turned right there. Nice little bed and breakfast there.
But with everything being built out of rock, you can sure tell this is.
Would you believe they had a years blew down about 250 big old trees, big old oak trees.
Yeah.
You know, in a historical society and all that, they were. I don't know if we got any of that pretty lake over or not. blonde-headed, kind of an attractive woman for her age, but oh, she was a pain in the ass.
I figured out who it was at the time, but now I've forgotten.
Well, I don't remember who. Of course, she wore white pants all the time. All she wore was white. And she made a point of telling you that so you wouldn't think that she just had one white pair of pants and white shirt.
Well, we had one lady that lived in the park. She doesn't live there anymore. She lived in the park, and her husband died, and another guy who his wife died, and after she drove a white automobile with white up, and her name was Bunny. I'm just wondering if she was the gal. It's not her friend that had the white stuff.
Yeah. Well, they got along good.
A84 straight ahead. Is that what we want to take? And Glasgow 81 goes to the right, so I guess we go straight ahead. Pretty little town.
Look at all the folks.
Yeah.
Rob Roy's Visitor Center, right back there. That must have been where he was buried when we were back there a while ago.
I think so. It said Rob Roy's grave.
Rob Roy Visitor Center. Be sure we got that.
You think the name of this place is Rob Roy's?
No, it's Calendar, I think. A while ago when you said that, I thought it was in the city, but this is it here. When you said that's where he was buried.
This is Scottish condominiums on the right.
Fourplexes.
Yeah. Now those look brand new right there.
Yeah. I tell you what, Glasgow, it's unreal. You know, I'd always seen smokestacks and all that.
Yeah.
And I want to tell you what, it's a modern city. I was real surprised. It's clean as a whistle. We circled a bar that had a chicken or something on it. And just, we made about 5 passes around trying to get to the hotel we were on.
Yeah.
And Marianne and them were thing you pull over, you could never made it.
I ain't gonna take. I don't think he's openly belligerent about it, but it seems to me like they had a second child and he never had even seen the first one or something. It's like that was extremely ironic the way all that happened, because when Ruby died, she was in the process of divorcing him, and she had the final divorce papers, and all she had to do to make it final and official was to sign them, and she never signed them. He and she had written.
I don't know why, but I thought they'd already got a divorce.
Well, almost.
This town is Dorn, D-O-E-R-N.
Okay, street sign. What do we take?
84, stay on 84.
That goes to the right. then.
Right. Trying to figure out what that red is across the road.
Probably a pedestrian crosswalk, maybe. Well, it's a speed limit sign for one thing.
It's a neat looking old house there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Muir Hall. Muir Hall. Sterling is 8 miles from here. We're supposed to get on M9 before we get to Sterling and stay on it and kind of go around it, hopefully, according to that map. The 84 is around to the left.
I don't know what's going on here.
I think that's what's going on. That guy was afraid to go on that road. It's not the widest bridge I've ever been on.
By the way, special instructions about what to say to these people and what not to say. About the tickets, won't you just let me do the talking?
Alright.
She said, for example, that it would be better not to go into all the details about how it happened.
We go to the left.
Okay.
I'd hate to take the time to tell them what all happened.
Yeah, that was either quail or pheasant that just
Yeah.
flew across there.
I wished we. It's beautiful haymat up there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, you know what, Bill? They haven't had that. I haven't seen any leaves yet. Chick pasture. around to the left, kind of left straight. Well, I was kind of surprised. I thought they got along great. I was kind of surprised when I knew Charles had a hard time with it.
Well, you just have to be careful what you say when the camera's running.
Just beautiful dairy here.
Yeah.
Get my post in.
Lowlands have these little swales and dips, and this way.
Yeah. If you look over around that mountaintop, see that castle?
Did you get all that on videotape?
I don't know if I did or not. It's a beautiful tree there, isn't it?
Yeah, sure is.
Like a silver leaf maple. Now, hopefully, we're going to skirt around Sterling. Edinburgh 37. That's where we want to go. Straight. No, we don't either. Hold on. Go slow just a minute.
Go to the left to Edinburgh.
Yeah. Well, we don't want to go to Sterling. But we want to go to we want to angle off to Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Angle off to the left up here on the behind. Now we go straight. This is what we're trying to avoid. We're going through Sterling. Hopefully we'll make it. Miss all that traffic's what that girl told me.
Yeah.
Apparently she knew what she's talking about.
I believe she did.
Edinburgh 33. If you're not careful.
Try to find that airport in the dark, and then as soon as we've done, I don't think that'll take very long. As soon as and then we'll have a good meal.
Stay in the right lane. Gosh, I tell you what, we're going to be there before you know it.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to set this down and walk up there and
You know, the only one I discovered was Bergen to Copenhagen, and I just assumed that we had those other tickets. I don't know why it says such and such, so the ticket's got to be in there. Because I still don't know whether he's stupid and incompetent or crooked.
I said, yeah, she won't know where to buy a newspaper. And I told her just to go out there and help her set. She said, my where the Louvre was, the rest road. And he said, well, none of us is hearing as good as it used to be, so there's just some sounds you have difficulty hearing. Asked me if I'd ever been in combat. He said, you know, that makes a difference with your hearing. But you know, I did better than I thought. Now, that M8 takes us just the opposite way we want to go. Yeah, we've been by there here before.
You recognize this? You figured out what the gap close means? Where to park, I guess we'll...
I want to tell you what, why don't you pull right up there by it and park, and I'll just stay in the car. Where we rented the car. And if anybody
Is there an unloading area there?
Well, there was cars parked there when we came by there. If there's any parking place there, you just go in and leave the keys. And if push comes to shove, I'll circle the block, put in the parking lot or whatever.
I couldn't tell you why. It ain't easy to get back to that airport. I thought I might have to send you a telegram.
I told him, I said, you know, I knew you loved to play golf. I mean, got my coat and clothes with me. Oh, Chris just laughed.
Yeah, I thought I might have to send a telegram in care of the Alamo car rental.
See what this says. To the left, it looks like. To the left, Bill. Your side's a little clearer than mine.
If it rains a little more, you'll be in good shape. Oops.
See the sign there? And Bill, if you put,
I'm gonna try what you said.
pull up there and park right in front of that squad car. Once you go past it,
I thought you wanted me to park right in front of the
how about
squad car.
how about right here?
And while we're going downtown, pay close attention so you can figure out how to get us. That was a good idea of yours to park right there in front of the terminal. I probably would have gone into that parking lot and had to walk a mile to get in there.
I saw those two bobbies when
I hope this is one-way traffic here. I think it is.
way
Okay.
out.
Way out, all destinations.
Go A8 over yonder. And it'll take us right downtown.
Long-legged blind. Which way?
Left.
That's a city bypass. We don't want to go the city bypass, do we?
I don't know. It looked like A8 was going to take us down. I thought we'd see something that said city center, but I didn't.
I didn't either. I just saw city bypass and you said you want to go downtown, so I figured we don't want to bypass the city.
Well, now I think we're going just the opposite of what we should.
No, I think the city is 6 miles this direction. I think.
I think you're on that M8 going just the opposite, but we'll see.
Well, it could be. See what the signs say.
Fourth Road Bridge, 5 miles. That's that bridge we were looking for before that we missed.
Yeah. Well, if I get a chance, you think I ought to turn around and head back?
Well, let's just go a minute and see. I think we're going just the opposite from where we need to go, though.
again, we need a damn compass.
I think that bridge over there is the one we should have gone over to go to. Somehow we missed it before. See, this M8 takes us exactly, you know, we need to stay on A8.
Yeah.
M8's taking us away.
Okay, well, what we need to do is figure out how the hell to get off of here and head the other direction.
It's unforgiving.
Yeah.
On this roundabout, why don't you just come on right back and we'll get on that other side, completely around it.
Okay.
No, down around this way, Bill. Let's see where it says Edinburgh City Bypass.
Okay. That's it.
See, here's the airport over here to the left.
Yeah.
These roads down here, though, once you better be right, you know, at least. Well, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's like if you screw up in our country.
Maybe that's how they normally compensate for mistakes. And if they want to punish you for your mistakes, they close all the gaps. All right, check the sign here.
City bypass, just go straight, I think.
They ought to tell you how the hell to go if you want to go to the city.
They should. And we may be going wrong too. We may be bypassing, but I don't know of any. I know that other road goes opposite way, so.
Yeah.
Or zoo follow city center. So maybe they have signs for city center. City center straight. Oh, it's confusing, isn't it?
Sure is.
Okay, now we need to go to the right.
straight.
Yeah. There. Mark and Spencer's there. Neiman Marcus or
If we're coming back this way, remind me, stop like at that Gulf station or somewhere. We want to top off the tank before we take this thing back. And those people that sell you gasoline, they charge a fortune for it.
yeah, they do. Fact is, if you just pull under and your tank says full, I don't think they check it. Normally I try to have it pretty full. But over here these service stations are few and far between.
Well, that's why
We come out 8, well remember it's on this side of PC World.
Yeah, that's why I was watching for a service station.
The city center is straight up here at this roundabout. Now that bus is full. Watch that red car, Bill.
Straight?
Yeah. Quick.
I'm sorry. I think on these roundabouts there's a way to use them. There's a...
Well, the right always has a right of way.
But I mean, as you're approaching the place where you're going to turn off, there's a lane that you're supposed to be in, you know, depending on where you're going to turn off. I think I was in a lane that indicated I was going further around. That's why a guy was honking at me. I should have been in the next lane over.
I think it's a beautiful city.
Yeah.
You know, look, ain't smarter than that driver I got. Oh, I've got a good driver. I shouldn't talk about him. One bad would make you sure appreciate a good one.
Yeah.
The one I had, you could tell him when to turn, and he still wouldn't turn. And if you,
If you didn't want him to turn, he probably would.
well, you know what, we were going to New Orleans, and I told him, I said, this next
See
exit.
some B&Bs.
Yeah.
Remember where they are in case we want to come back and check them out.
I told him, I said, this next exit's where we get off to right to go across that causeway to go to New Orleans. And he went right by it. I said, hell, I told you to get off. And he said, I didn't see any signs. He said, that's where you get off. And I said, hell, man, I told you to get off. Well, those 40 houses are real nice hotels here. That's probably the best they've got as far as chain goes, I think. That was the nicest hotel we stayed in when we were here. See the castle
Mm-hmm.
on the rock?
Yeah. You think we ought to look for a B&B out here and drive into town? Or you think got a feeling that if we go into town looking for a B&B, they're probably going to be about twice the price. You know, tourists that are in town and don't have an automobile are kind of trapped.
Whatever you want to do. But I tell you what, the city's full of them. See, that's all this is along here.
Well, when we see one that says vacancies, let's pull in.
There's one right there.
Right here?
See where it says B&B?
Yeah.
Just pull up on the curb like that big guy is. I don't know if we can, how long.
I'll go. Talk. Well, here's Jenner's place. Had to get a picture of it.
Thank you.
Built his two galleries, the Royal Academy and the National. Now we'll be coming back this way and we'll see them much closer. But you look up to your left, you'll see these white houses with the red roofs, Ramsay Gardens. Now this was as close as you were allowed to build to the castle. In fact, it's one arrow's distance in between, keeping all the land in front free in case of invasion. But you'll see every summer we are invaded by the seating arrangement for the military tattoo. There's just the last batch of scaffolding still to come down. It takes them 8 weeks to build it and 4 weeks to take it all down again. But it's worth it. High to your left now, the Millsmount Battery, where they fire the 1 o'clock gun every day, except Sunday. Sunday you're supposed to be in church, not out enjoying yourself. And the oldest building in the city is a little church, way at the top of the castle, under the flag, Queen Margaret's Chapel. She started in the year 1090, with the castle sitting on an extinct volcanic plug. And then down the river in the 15th century, that gave them the lake. Wonderful defence. Well, unfortunately, it wasn't only used for defending them. It was also used for testing the witches. They would tie their thumbs and their toes together, throw them into the water. If they stayed down, they were innocent. If they came up, they were guilty. They had to be. That was the devil pushing them back up to safety. And they no sooner came up, they were dragged off to the castle and burnt as a witch. It was a no-win situation. 200 poor souls met their end this way. Well, at the end of the lake, the Norloch, two churches were built. This on your left is the youngest, St John's Episcopalian. And like so many buildings in Edinburgh, it's just had a facelift, bringing it back to its lovely original golden colour. The craig leaf stone that was so popular in building the new town, but unfortunately very porous. That's why so many of the buildings look so dirty. And again to your left of the tree, St Cuthbert's Church of Scotland. And it's been a church nestling down here since St Cuthbert blessed the land in the 7th century. That's the sixth church that lies down there. That one dates back to 1790. And here on your left, at the corner of its graveyard, is a little tower. Now this is a death watch tower, and the churches had to build those to stop the body snatchers, or the resurrectionists as they like to call themselves, the people who dug up the fresh bodies and sold them to the medical school. By the 1820s, Edinburgh was the centre of anatomical research. They needed as many bodies as they could lay their hands on. They didn't care where they got them, as long as they were fresh. So the families paid someone to keep guard until their loved ones had gone off, till they were no good to the doctors. Edinburgh was not a nice place to die in those days. We're much nicer now, of course. Now we're coming around the back of the castle, high to your left. You'll see the Butt Battery. This is where the archers stood defending the old town. And the regimental barracks high above you, because Edinburgh Castle is a working establishment. So you should be surprised when you see soldiers running about up here. This is where they live. And if one of those young soldiers is about to be married, he's allowed to have the service in the little medieval church of Queen Margaret. It's a Scotsman's delight. It only seats 22, so you don't have to pay for 20 to come to your wedding. Look at the money you save. Now we're going to bring you back to the castle. We'll be facing this on the return journey. We're going to go around the old section first, and the government buildings on your left are on the site of the old streets. And one of them was called Tanner's Close. And there were two Irishmen lived down here, the best known body sellers of all, Burke and Hare. But their technique was different. They didn't wait till their victims were dead. They would take them into the taverns, get them drunk, bring them back here and suffocate them, so they're a perfect carcass to sell to the doctors. Well, eventually they were caught. Hare gave evidence against the others. He fled back to Ireland, and Burke was hung in front of a crowd of 20,000 people. His body was snatched down and flayed. The skin was cut away and made into a purse. Gets better. And he was dissected like his victims before him. Serves him right. Oh yes, and you all just had your breakfast. Yes. Now that purse and skeleton can still be seen in the Anatomy Museum, the Jules Scar Museum, open weekday afternoons to the public. So if you're really desperate, ask me later and I'll tell you how to get there. Now pretend we've just come through a gate. That would have been the West Port, one of the 6 gates into the old town, and we're now into the Grass Market, the largest open area in the old town. This is where they traded in sheep and cattle for 500 years until this century. Ken's going to give you a minute or two if you want to get some photographs, because up to your left there's a super view of the citadel. This is where the kings and queens live for safety. after his third and final visit to the city. I think everybody's going to stay upstairs, Ken. Are you? Yeah. It's not cold. No. Just a bit brief. That's a good word for you. Because they ran out of drink, heaven forbid, but because the gallows used to stand outside where the bodies took the last drop from this earth. And the gallows stood in this little stone garden, just ahead of you on your left. Now, there's the stump below you where the gallows used to stand. There's a cross on top of there, the cross of the Covenanters. Now, the Covenanters were the people who signed the National Covenant in 1636 against King Charles, who was forcing the English bishops onto the Scots. And this started a 40-year religious war. After one battle, 1,000 were captured and held around here on your right, within the walls of Greyfriars Churchyard. And those that survived were either sold as slaves to the Americas or executed. So the most famous resident in there is Bobby, the Skye Terrier dog who kept guard over his master's grave for 14 years. But when he died, they put a little statue ahead of you on your left in Bobby's memory, just below the front of the bus now, at the corner. And that's all the size that Bobby was. You can't see that. There's his image on your right, over the inn where he was fed. And keep looking to your right through the church gate. You'll see his red marble headstone, where Bobby is buried in the front of the church, in non-consecrated grounds. You are not allowed to go sticking animals in the churchyard. But he's not far from his master, John Gray, the local policeman. To your left, behind all this excavation work, is Chambers Street Museum, the Royal Museum of Scotland, built in the 1860s as a copy of the Crystal Palace in London. The wrought iron work inside is magnificent. 5 times as long as it's wide, and it's got everything from a dinosaur to a diamond in here. It will be open at 12, and it's quite free to get into. Another gate would have stood here, the Bristol port. This was the city limit. This is where the university grew up on the other side. Look to your left as we turn. You will see the dome of the old college with the boy with the torch of knowledge, stretching round to 18th, 19th, 20th century buildings that stretch for half a mile here. And this on your left is the medical faculty. And it's associated with people like Joseph Lister, the antiseptic, Simpson, anesthesia. Charles Darwin failed his exams here. Couldn't stand the sight of blood. You have to go to Cambridge to become a botanist instead, just as well it seems. And a young man called Arthur Conan Doyle had 2 teachers called Little John and Bell, and they became Dr. Watson and Sherlock Holmes when he wrote his stories. Practicing on your left at the Royal Infirmary, an institution that started in 1729 with only 6 beds. There's 1,000 beds and they come from all over the world to study here. Used to perform the operations at the top of the building, so the patients could look at the windows and the hand-painted ceilings while they were chopping bits off. Personally, I prefer anaesthetic. Now this is the back of George Heriot's school, which you will see when you're up at the castle, because this is where the Flodden Wall used to run. Flodden was a dreadful battle in 1513, when the king and all the troops were killed by the English. Thought the English were coming here, so they started to build their Flodden Wall to keep them out. Just as well the English didn't come. It took them 47 years to finish building their wall. But it encased the old town, the area we're going around today. The red stone on your right is the Hunter Building, the New Art College, built some 20 years ago. The old one is behind, built in 1907. All the big windows face north, so they don't have shadows when they're painting. And down to your right, you'll see some lovely vintage fire engines. This is the former headquarters to the Lothian Fire Service. It's now a museum of fire with 600 years of firefighting history. I'm sorry to tell you, this is where we have an age discrimination. They only let school children climb over those machines. But so many people walk along here, they don't realise what's behind those glass doors. With the machines at the front, dating on your right, 1824, the year that Thomas Braidwood started the first municipal fire brigade in Britain, here in Edinburgh. My favourite, that one in the centre with all the brass. 1926 that was built. The stable doors are still at the back with the hoof prints. Because when the alarms used to go, the horses would kick the doors open and come prancing out. They knew what the routine was. Now you know where all these lovely machines are. Would you believe, up until about 30 years ago, the firemen, their wives and their children all lived over the fire station. Can you imagine trying to keep your children quiet when all the alarms were going off? And for a few years before they built the art college on your right, this is where the cattle market stood. It must have been chaos. Cattle, fire engines, all coming out at the same time. But one old fireman used to boast there was always fresh beef on their table. Anything they knocked over, they just dragged back in. But when you're up at the castle looking down to the art college, you think about the best known model of all they had up here, Sean Connery, or Big Tam Connery as he was then. He lived around the corner to your left at Fountain Bridge. He was a local milkman and he supplemented his income by modelling for the art students, wearing not much more than a smile on his face. And I don't care if that man was 66 last month. I'll take him for his pension any Thursday morning. I can dream. Well, we're coming back up to the castle on your right. There was nothing down here until the beginning of the 19th century, except farms and estates. The railways came, so the land was very quickly developed. So they needed a road up to the old section. And they blasted their way through the castle rock here. This was the Great Western Approach Route. The rock would have stretched from the grass market below way up to the walls, dating back to the time of Robert the Bruce in the 14th century. Now high to your left, this way you can go into the Great Hall where the king entertained, held parliament, visit the vaults underneath. They've reconstructed them as they would have been when the French prisoners were here during the Napoleonic Wars. And those men were used to build the Esplanade. There's the parade ground, much closer now. And this is where they hold the military tattoo every evening during the 3 weeks of the festival. Now the next stop is the one for the castle, if you wish to leave us. It's open, yes. It will just be opening. And if you are visiting today, do try and get as early as possible. Because the scaffolding has come down now, and they let the coaches now get back up onto the Esplanade and it gets very busy. On the other side of the church is the Camera Obscura and the Whisky Heritage Centre. Okay, that's, along with the castle, they'll give you a discount with your tour ticket. Just go round here. Oh, sorry.
You want to tour the
Just
castle?
around the church and you'll see the entrance facing you. That's the Royal Mile on the other side, and our stops are all the way down there. Okay. Oh. Everybody feels like town was pumped from a reservoir up at the castle entrance to 10 stone wells that stood in the streets where the women queued for their water. But if you were rich, you were not carrying water up and down the stairs. You hired a water caddy to do it. A man who carried things for a living. And this is where you get the word a caddy, a golf caddy, a man who still carries things. And this afternoon at 2 o'clock, please do try and visit this house when it opens. On your left, Gladstone's land. Thomas Gladstone bought this house in 1617 and it's now beautifully restored by the National Trust. Even the windows are restored as they were in those days, with glass blown like bottles, set into metal strips. And it would take a family 7 years to pay for their windows and their mirrors. And that's how you get the saying, 7 years bad luck when the glass was broken. They only had shutters for fresh air, and unfortunately, the ladies of the houses would open these shutters, shout "Gare du Loup" and throw all the rubbish out. And when you heard that, you got into the side as quickly as you could, and you never looked up. All the mess would come slopping down into the streets below. And they kept pigs outside the houses in mangers. And they would go out at night and eat up as much rubbish as possible. The city's first cleansing department. Well, there's no cess barrels and no cesspits now in the courtyards, so do explore. Especially down to your left. Lady Stairs Close will take you down to Lady Stairs House, which is open from Monday to Saturday, one of the 4 free museums in the Royal Mile. There, ahead of you now, is the crown spire of St Giles, the High Kirk of Scotland. It is not a cathedral. Hasn't been a cathedral since the 17th century, when we threw all the English bishops out, the time of the Covenanters. You can see the people going for service because it is also the local parish church for many people, not just the High Kirk of Scotland. Most of the building inside is medieval. There's been a church on the site for over 900 years, and probably the most famous minister was John Knox, the man who brought the Protestant Reform movement to Edinburgh, turning the people against the young Catholic Queen, Mary Queen of Scots. And ironically, John Knox was trained as a Catholic priest as a young man. Another twist in our history. There are guides inside St Giles, but I'm afraid you have to wait until after the service. Either that, or you go and enjoy them. The buildings that run on your right behind St Giles are the High Court of Session, the highest court in the land, and the Parliament Hall, where we were governed until the union with England in 1707. Ahead of you on your left now, the building with the flagpoles, are our city chambers, and this is where Edinburgh is governed from. Built in the 1750 as a royal exchange for the merchants, turned over to the city fathers. Here on your right are Market Cross, where proclamations are still called out, 3 days after they're called out in London. That's how long it used to take the horse riders to reach Edinburgh with news. Now it takes 4 days for a letter to get here. I think we're better off with the horses when we have them. You will notice all the closes or enclosed walkways have got different names, usually the trade or the inn that stood there. The ones on your left would have gone way down to the water's edge of the Norloch, to your right down to the edge of the Flodden Wall. So they couldn't build out, they had to build up the way. Now these buildings are maybe only about 5 or 6 stories on this side, but you walk around the back, you'll start counting 9, 10, 11 stories. Good morning. Good morning. Now when the railways came, they built Coburn Street on your left by slicing through all these closes to give them an access route down to what is now the Waverley Station. Quite a feat of engineering. And some years earlier, when the new town was approved, they knocked down 5 streets on your left to build the North Bridge in 1763. This was the first walkway linking the old town with the new. And then a few years later, they actually cut the sides of this church, Christ Church at the Tron, to build the South Bridge. Edinburgh is now expanding outside the city walls. Would you believe the hotel on your right is only 6 years old? And it took them many years to come up with a design and keep it with the old section. Yes. Now there's another free museum coming on your right, Museum of Childhood. Again, it will be open tomorrow morning. It takes in the whole 5 floors, toys from all over the world. Do try and visit. But here on your left, the oldest buildings in the Royal Mile, Mowbray House with the window boxes, 1460. John Knox House, 1490. John Knox is said to have preached to the people from the stairwell in the last months of his life in 1572. Now more gates would have stood in front of you, the huge Netherbow gates, because the inn at the corner is called the Waddles End Tavern, because this was the end of the world for the people living in Edinburgh. The 50,000 folk were crammed into 138 acres behind us. We are now in the borough of the Canons of Holyrood. They governed themselves quite separately from the 12th century, up until about 170 years ago. for acres and acres, this was a drumshook forest. This is what they cut down to build their first wooden houses. Invaders kept burning them down. And it became a law you built in stone, and it was treated like a suburb for the noblemen. But they went to the new town, left us to the poor, and it fell into disrepair. They've restored it, they've got the community back. The oldest buildings here are ahead of you on your left. The 12th century toll booth, which is another free museum, the People's Story. And on your right hand side, 3 16th century houses in one, the Huntley House Museum. Again, it's free, open again tomorrow with everything to do with the old town. The little church on your left, the Connery parish, built in 1688. And at the top of the church is a royal crest, because this is where the Queen comes for her Sunday services, which is at Holyrood Palace. Now we're actually coming down towards the palace, if you wish to leave us for a visit. It was started in 1503 by James IV for his wedding to the 14-year-old English princess, Margaret Tudor, Henry VIII's sister. The entrance is directly ahead of you through the gates. There's the Northwest Tower. That's where you'll find the apartments where Mary Queen of Scots lived for the 6 very turbulent years she was Queen in Scotland. And if you leave us here, there'll be a bus every 10 minutes to pick you up again.
Anyone wish to visit the palace just now? You're all paid.
I think they're all stuck to their seats, Ken. There's nobody moving. The building over your left shoulder, Whiteford House, was once a mansion, and this is where Mary Queen of Scots' second husband, Lord Darnley, lived. It's now a home of residence for ex-army veterans of Scottish regiments. Once more, ahead of you to your right, there's the palace. Much added to until the time of Charles II, but always keeping the style of the original Northwest Tower. I mentioned Mary Queen of Scots. Well, this little tower ahead of you on your right is reputed to be Mary's bathhouse. Now think of it, girls. Would you leave the palace to walk to the street, take a bath? It said she bathed twice a year, whether she needed it or not. Very clean lady. Remember, in those days they wore underwear to protect the clothes, not the bodies. Now we've got some wonderful views behind you, but we're going to climb to the top of the hill here. I'm going to show you the quick way to climb up Arthur Street. Now we're turning onto the Regent and Royal Terraces, and the houses that will run on your right as we go here is where the new town stopped. This is where they run out of money because of the Napoleonic Wars bankrupting the city. Once elegant homes for ship owners and merchants, now was the hotels and embassies. And the Regent Terrace is the longest continuous terrace in Europe, outside the city of St. Petersburg. Now look down to your left through the trees, you will see the ruins of the Abbey of the Holy Rood. A rood is a Scots word for a cross. And this is where King David, after being spared his life after the attack from the White Stag, built his abbey in 1128. The palace, of course, where the royal family live when they come to Edinburgh. And Arthur's Seat rising up behind, 823 feet above us. That is the original volcano that created the explosions, forming the 7 hills that Edinburgh stands on. Salisbury Crags rising in the front, and you can see how the Ice Age gouged its way along there. And the little temple on your left now is our Robert Burns Memorial, built in 1830 by the Scots architect Thomas Hamilton. There's some lovely views for you. If you look down to your left, you'll see a little road leaving the side of the palace, and that's the one that will take you very quickly and very safely to the top. And if you go along the crags go along the Radical Road. There's someone just starting the incline there. Can you see them? And that will take you down to a wonderful section called Samson's Ribs, great big basalt columns. You've even got 3 lakes inside this park. On this side, Queen Margaret's, in the centre, Dunsapie, where Bonnie Prince Charlie camped with his troops before battle. And on the other side is twice as much land. You've got Duddingston Loch. And there below you, you've got Whiteford House again. Remember I showed you the town mansion where Lord Darnley lived with his little secret garden at the back there. The building on your right-hand side, this is a former Royal High School for boys, built in 1829, again by Hamilton, inspired by his European tour to build it like 3 Greek temples with no windows down this side, so the boys wouldn't be distracted by the views when they were doing their lessons. This is the building that was vacated in 1978, where we were to have our Scottish Parliament. We keep losing the vote. But just in case Londoners haven't got the message, ahead of you on your right at the entrance to the gates, there is a Portakabin where they've been holding a vigil since the last general election for Scottish Parliament. But we are governed from London to the building on your left. This is St Andrew's House, built in 1936 on the site of the old Carlton Jail. Carlton means bushes. You look up to your left behind the building, that little castle was the prison warden's house. That's all that's left. They built this road by cutting through the cemetery, shoving the graves over, to build this flyover. Look through these pillars. See how high we are, with the old road going up to the old town on your left. And all this was built by a great engineer called Robert Stevenson, Robert Louis Stevenson's grandfather, to connect the Princes Street in front, 1 mile long, with the Carlton Hill at the back. And if you look back, there's a super view for you. Nelson's monument, like his upturned spyglass. You can climb up there, the ball at the top gets raised and dropped every day when the 1 o'clock gun goes up at the castle. It was a nautical clock for the sailors, now it's just a purely for tradition. And the pillars next to it should have been a wonderful temple for the dead of the Napoleonic Wars. The city was bankrupt, of course, by this time, never completed. Instead it was called the Disgrace of Edinburgh, Edinburgh's Folly. If you're keen on photography, get yourself up there. The views are quite special. The hero of the Napoleonic Wars on your right, the Duke of Wellington. He sits on his horse Copenhagen, one of the many statues in the city by the Scottish sculptor Sir John Steele. Now he sits in front of Robert Adams' finest public building, Register House. This is where all the city archives are stored. Everything from the number of witches that burned to how they've laid out their plumbing. If it's your ancestors you want to find, there is a little lane at the far side on your right. New Register House is tucked in behind there. That has the births, deaths and marriages in Scotland only. So if you've got any tartan skeletons in your cupboard, that's where you find them. To your right once more, the North Bridge. Remember, this was the first walkway built to link the old with the new. And this building ahead of you on your left, up until about 5 years ago, I hated. It was a black monstrosity. It was built in 1902 as the North British Railways Hotel, beautifully restored at a cost of £20 million, sandblasting it all. Now we're into the new town, designed by a 23-year-old James Craig. And would you believe Princes Street was never meant to look like this? It was the Victorians who turned it into a shopping precinct. This was private houses facing private gardens. And the first householders took out a law stopping anyone from building on the left in blocking their views. But they did manage to build this monument here on your left, the one to Sir Walter Scott. 200 feet high, you can climb the 287 steps to the top. And when you come down, you'll get your certificate to say how mad you were for going up there in the first place. Sir Walter sits in the centre behind you, carved from a 30-ton block of Carrera marble, again by John Steele. Now this monument cost £15,000 to build, and after 4 years of wrangling, they have at last taken the decision to clean it, and it's going to cost £1.5 million. So there's inflation for you. So I hope the next time you come back to Edinburgh, it'll be as lovely and golden as the other buildings. Now we're just about to turn into George Street. And this is the main boulevard of the new town. New town was built in 4 sections. We're going around the first. And they wanted a church at each end. Remember, it was all farmland down here. No church on your right. This is where the Dundasses, bride the city fathers, have got the land. Lawrence got his mansion at the back, and Henry, if you look back now, you'll see him much better, got his monument. Henry Dundas was the first Viscount Melville, Secretary of State, and probably the most hated man in Scotland in the 18th century. And that statue is so high because that's the only way he was going to get that close to heaven. He was terrified there was going to be another revolution here. There were still many Jacobites supporting the king's cause. He read people's correspondence, he spied on them, he had trials when people weren't even present to defend themselves and had them deported to Australia. Dreadful man. Now George Street is 100 feet wide, so the gentlemen could just turn their carriages and very elegantly get off at the doors, and they would come to this building on your left, the assembly buildings, for their entertainment. Oh, look up to your left, the chandeliers are lit. The front of this building doesn't do it justice. Inside, beautiful ballrooms, elegant tea rooms, and people like Thackeray, Charles Dickens, and Sir Walter Scott would entertain. And in the winter time in Edinburgh, we still have tea dances up there in the ballrooms in the afternoon. All the grown-ups rushing to get the tickets. Now the houses were of a set size, 3 stories up, 1 story down, no more than 14 metres wide, to give a feel of symmetry walking around the streets. One of the original buildings is here on your left with the lighthouse flashing. For 200 years it's been the headquarters for the Lighthouse Commission. One of its great engineers, another Stevenson, Robert Louis' family. Now gradually finance companies and shops edged into Princes Street and George Street. And about 25 years ago, the Newtown Trust said enough is enough. When there's a building to be restored, it's got to be in keeping with its surroundings. And here's a lovely example on your left. Would you believe there used to be shop fronts down here? This was Robertson's the bookshop. At last they're getting it right. They resembled the buildings ahead of you on your left. This is the next stage. This is going to cost £2 million to restore, but it's going to be worth it. Now all the streets in the first section of the new town are called after George III's Hanoverian family. The square in front of you after his young German princess bride, Charlotte. And the square was designed by Robert Adam again, with each block looking like one elegant entrance up a ladder in front. And I'm afraid it looks a wee bit lonely just now because so many of the lawyers and bankers who gave it its name, the richest square in Scotland, have gone to modern premises in the last year or two. These are listed houses that are not allowed to go ripping out the insides to put in all the high technology they need. So the City Fathers and the National Trust are restoring them. So if anybody won the lottery last night, you can buy a house here for £750,000. But because the property is so expensive, they're being separated into apartments. We're very lucky. The whole of the new town is 75% domestic. And the Newtown Trust have given out £12 million in grants to help them maintain what I think, for some bias, the best example of Georgian architecture in Europe. Left as we turn at the corner, this This is where Alexander Graham Bell was born. The 23-year-old who emigrated to the Americas, and ironically the teacher to the deaf and dumb invented the telephone. Another twist in history. Now as we turn, you will see the church coming on your left. It's now West Register House. This is how they've utilised this grand building, where they've got 800 years of documented history laid out free of charge every weekday to the public. And as we turn round to the north face, coming on your left, is number 9. This is where Joseph Lister, the surgeon, lived, the man who developed antiseptic and surgery. Number 7 is the Georgian House, which will be open this afternoon at 2 o'clock to the public. It's been restored again by the National Trust, and you can step back 200 years in time, as it would have been when these ladies and gentlemen first built their houses. Go down to the basements. They've made a film of actors and actresses living out their life as it would have been, and you get an even better idea of what life was like. Have you noticed that nobody's got a front garden? They all shared their gardens with the neighbours. All the back sections were for carriages and tradesmen, and the only public gardens in Newtown are Princess Street. All the rest, you'll see 100 acres of them throughout the houses, are still owned and maintained by the house owners. As they did years ago, they pay an annual subscription, given the use of the keys when a gardener comes along. All very genteel. I mentioned Sir Walter Scott, and he lived down here on your left, the first house next to the insurance company, number 39. He lived here for 23 years, and this is where he wrote his Waverley novels. He was a great lawyer and advocate, a renowned poet, but he didn't think it was a done thing for a legal gentleman to be writing popular books. So he wrote under the name of Waverley for 23 years. And that's why you get that name popping up all over the place. Now we're just about to turn into Frederick Street. He was the second son of George III, but you probably know him better by the children's nursery rhyme, the Grand Old Duke of York. The man who took his 10,000 men up the hill and brought them all the way back down again. The whole family must have been barking mad. Now as we go through the lights ahead of you, look on either side along Queen Street. And believe it or not, this is what Princess Street used to look like before the Victorian shopkeepers got their hands on it. These are still private houses facing their private gardens. It's like night and day when you compare the two streets. Victorian shopkeepers got a lot to answer for. Now there ahead of you, that church, St. Stephen's, built in the 1820s, was built as a view blocker. The City Fathers were building the Royal High School, and 4 enterprising gentlemen decided to build Edinburgh Academy down here. Well, the City Fathers didn't want the rich gentlemen riding over the hill, spotting this new school and then sending their sons to it. So they commissioned Playfair to build this church and block it out. It's a view blocker. It has the longest pendulum in a church in Europe. Now look at Queen Street. It's hard to believe this is what Princess Street looked like, isn't it? Now we're turning into Heriot Row. Coming alongside, your left hand is number 17, the third door along there. And this is where Robert Louis Stevenson lived from the age of 7 until his mid-20s. Now the family moved here because the houses were south-facing, much sunnier for the little boy who suffered from tuberculosis. In fact, the weather in Edinburgh nearly killed him. As a very sickly child, he would sit at his bedroom at the top, waiting each night for Leary to come along. Leary is a Scots word for a lamplighter. And Lady Dunn Park, who owns a house, put a plaque at the bottom of her lamp with the last verse of Leary the Lamplighter, the poem that Lewis wrote about this very lonely boy waiting each night to weep. because he was writing about himself. Here on your left. Oh, that breakfast came.
Hot tots is our breakfast.
And when the weather permitted, he would play in the gardens opposite. There's a pond in there with an island. And he said years later, this is where he played pirates, and that became Treasure Island. Well, he did travel all over the world finding somewhere suitable to live. Shot his family by falling in love with a married American lady, Fanny Osborne. They shocked him even more when he followed her to California so she could get her divorce. Well, they sailed the South Sea Islands, and the Samoans called him Tusitala, the teller of tales. Now, he was only 44 when he died, but he packed a heck of a lot into his life. If you've never read his books, shame on you. You try and find out more about him. Great character. As we go through the lights, look along to your left, along Queen Street again. You will see a red stone building with blue banners. It was Queen Street Museum of Antiquities. It's now the National Museum of Scotland and the National Portrait Gallery. It's got memorabilia going back to the Roman times. They camped here when they were building the Antonine Wall, and portraits of great Scots going back to the Middle Ages. It's free. It will be open at 12. If it's all getting too much for you, they've opened a coffee shop on the ground floor. You can rest your weary feet along here. And if you can only manage to visit one museum in the city, try and make it this one. Probably the most unusual item they have, all the children love it, is a Scottish guillotine, the Maiden. And it was called the Maiden because the men would kiss it and then lose their head over it. Very chauvinistic. There we are. If you look behind you, the morning mist has lifted. There's a lovely view with two little yachts sailing up there. That is over the top of Force to Fight. Over the first of the River Force to the Kingdom of Fife. Over the first of Force to Fight. Much easier than the least is visited us. Now we're heading back down towards the mountain. I told you earlier it was a man-made mud bridge, but in the 1950s they put an electric blanket under it to stop the cars sliding down here in the winter time. Much closer now ahead of you, the Royal Academy, this very heavy Doric design, built by Playfair in 1826 for the Academy members. They have private exhibitions. There are charges to get in here. But the building behind, much softer Ionic style, is the National Gallery. Again by Playfair, built in 1850. It will be open at 2 o'clock, and it's got the best collection of masters outside the city of London. And it's great. Titian, Goya, Rubens, Pissarro, Van Gogh, it's all there for you. And Playfair designed and won an award for this building as well on your right at the top, this Gothic building. It's assembly for the Church of Scotland, where the divinity students study, and where the ministers gather every May to elect the moderator, the man who sits over our church for 1 year only. We don't have bishops, we're very democratic. It also means if we don't like them, we can get rid of them 12 months later. Wonderful system. And the building towering above you on your right, the headquarters to the Bank of Scotland. Started in 1695, these walls are now 12 feet thick. That's where they keep all the money. Now we're back onto the bridge where we started. We've travelled almost 7 miles the easy way. And if you want to take out another tour, you jump on the green and cream bus that's standing at the top there. Now remember, the tours run until 5:35 tonight. You can get on and off another bus 10 minutes later to pick you up. Don't throw your ticket away, use it as a discount. account. So the place is printed in red in your little maps. And if you go to any of the cities who also have Guide Friday tickets, show them your Edinburgh. Ticket, you'll get money off your tour there as well. We know how to stretch a pound up here. You make them work for you. And it looks like the sun's coming out. Bless it. Thanks for coming on our tour. Enjoy yourselves.